got something to tell the Kingpin.
Oh, yeah, sure.
To measure radiation, and it's going wild. What's happening?
If I can't have an army, I'll be one.
This version of Superman, the one in the Kingdom Come story by Mark Waid, with art by Alex Ross and Mike Carlin, is set in an alternate reality, Earth 22. Meaning, it isn't a baseline redesign for the character. For that matter, it isn't even a complete overhaul of Superman's costume. The only difference they made to the costume was that Clark's hair had silver streaks to show his age, and the yellow parts of his emblem were changed to black. Otherwise, his costume was a very classic Superman getup. But those two little changes, plus just the overall style of the art itself, did something to this Superman that for me, it just makes me tingle. You know? When Daredevil first came out on the scene in 1964, his look was different from the one most readers are used to. Instead of his normal color scheme, Daredevil instead had a predominantly yellow suit, with only parts of the suit being the familiar red color. Now, in my humble opinion, the yellow and red suit has its own perks. The overall design of the suit is fairly similar to what would come later. But I will agree that when he showed up in Daredevil #7 with the all-red suit, courtesy of artist Wally Wood, it was an instant stick. It was more in keeping with the darker, brooding, street-level nature of his stories. And it stuck for, well, pretty much the rest of his publication. Hey guys, before we go on, I just want to say a quick little thanks for watching. I also want to say thanks for those of you that leave comments below. I read a lot of them, and you guys always have interesting and helpful things to say. So thanks. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I won't forget to get on with this video. Number 8, the Punisher logo. Okay. I want to talk about this one for a couple of reasons, but let's just say it. Straight up, it's controversial, which always makes for a good discussion. Basically, the classic Punisher logo that has been around since the 70s got a bit of a redesign this year. Punisher has joined the Hand, and in doing so, he has changed his logo to resemble that of an Oni. There's also reason to believe that the symbol may reflect his status within the organization. Unfortunately, there is also a real-world political reason for the change. The logo itself was being adopted by real-world police officers, which is kind of odd considering Punisher is pretty anti-authority, and was even worn by some of those who were involved in the Capitol riots, leading Marvel to make a politically motivated change. Love it or hate it, it is the new look for the character right now. I'm not totally opposed to it, but I know at least a few of you guys out there are a little upset. Let me know what you think below. Number 7. X-Men. I don't know if you know what the original costumes of the X-Men looked like back in the day. Yellow and dark navy blue with yellow and black boots and gloves. Except for Beast, who is still vaguely human and didn't wear boots or gloves, and Iceman, who was more like Snowman. The matching costumes definitely show that this was a team, even with their different and unique mutant abilities. There have been many iterations of X-Men costumes since, but for me, when the characters themselves got their own individual costumes in issue 39 of the comic, that's when they really came into their own. The leader of the team, Cyclops, has generally used this look and variations on this look ever since. Mostly. The other members took a bit more time to find iconic looks, namely Angel and Beast, who eventually got his blue fur. Number 6. Star-Lord. When Star-Lord showed up in Marvel Preview number 4, he was a far cry away from what most fans have come to recognize him as. I think he kinda looks a lot like Owlman from the Watchmen comics, to be honest, but even Peter's personality was much different. The tagline on the comic was, "He stalks the galaxy, one man on a mission of cosmic vengeance." That doesn't sound like the typical wisecracking, sarcastic young hero we know today. Even before Chris Pratt took on the character, Star-Lord was revamped in the 2006 and 2007 Annihilation event, where he formed the Guardians of the Galaxy and got an incredible new costume change, ditching the more cowl-like headpiece for a full helmet and the skin-tight outfit for a more loose-fitting uniform. It just gives his character a much more distinctive look, in my opinion. Number 5. Green Lantern. Technically, this point can be argued with. This isn't so much a redesign as a wholly different character, but ask anyone who isn't deeply knowledgeable of the comics who the original Green Lantern is, and you're likely to hear them say Hal Jordan. Now, I'm just guessing here, but I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Hal Jordan's look, compared to the one of Alan Scott, it's just so much more iconic. Alan Scott sported a black cape with a red collared top, green pants, and a sweet normal looking belt. Sure, he is a different character and not technically an official Green Lantern, but when Hal Jordan came in with a green and black suit with hints of white, it just stuck. Let's just not talk about the movie version, okay? Number 4, Robin, Damian Wayne. We talked about Batman in the last video, so it's only fair we talk about his ward. Specifically, I want to talk about the costume of the newest Robin, and Batman's son, Damian Wayne. If we go back in time and look at the classic original Robin's costume, well, let's just say it kinda goes with the costume of the Caped Crusader at the time. In other words, it's incredibly impractical. I'm also thinking the bare legs wouldn't bode too well in the streets of Gotham, but that's just me. The costume was evolved over the years for sure, but the one that Damian wears when he appears as Robin in 2006, it's just like, ooh, I like it. You know, it's kind of hard to get specific on what makes this one so much better, I'll be honest. But if we just slap up some comparison pics, I mean, it's just better. Number 3, Ultimate's Hawkeye. The Ultimate Universe in Marvel sees a lot of changes to character designs that honestly kind of reflect the MCU looks just a little bit. Overall, I think the outfits are improvements on the originals. I want to give a big nod to Ultimate Thor. But I think the best of the character overhauls would have to be Hawkeye's Ultimate Universe costume. The black vest, the crew cut, and the red glasses make him look even more like a secret agent, which he is. It's also a bit edgier and darker than his 616 counterpart, which most of the Ultimates are, considering the comics were aimed at teens. Fight me in the comments, but I definitely prefer this costume. Number 2. Batgirl. Batgirl first appeared in Detective Comics 359, sporting an all-black costume with a yellow bat symbol, belt, boots, and gloves. Personally, I didn't have much of a problem with this look. I thought it was simple, for sure, and quite basic. Just like the other members of the Bat family, Barbara Gordon also got a ton of redesigns through the years. But in 2014, when she got a redesign thanks to artists Cameron Stewart, Brendan Fletcher, and Babs Tarr, the new look, much like Damian's Robin suit, just made more sense. The costume was much more practical. More of a jacket kind of design with a removable cape. The belt was more casual, more like a holster design. Her design had much more personality too, this way, which really works for the character herself, who also has a strong personality. Number 1. Nightwing. Nightwing first appeared after leaving the Bat family in Tales of the Teen Titans Volume 1, number 44, and his costume was, honestly, not too bad. It was goofy for sure. Don't get me started on the collar, but with those gold wing designs, it was pretty cool. I'd be a fool though if I didn't say that the blue V costume that debuted in 1996 is the best suit that character has ever worn, if we don't take into account his newest DC Rebirth suit, which is basically just a slightly updated version of this one. The simple blue bird across the chest and into the arms, mixed with the rest of the suit being black, yeah, it's a simpler look, but one that ultimately works better than any other. Number 10. Nova. Alright, starting off our little list today is going to actually be more of a different version of a character of the same name rather than a redesign. There have been multiple Nova Primes throughout the history of the universe. Richard Rider is absolutely the main one, and he is fantastic. I absolutely adore his Nova Prime costume. But when we first saw Samuel Alexander in Point One, Number 1 in 2011 sporting the black Nova helmet, I'm sorry, it just did something special for me. I really enjoy it. Granted, being a younger, more slender guy, he doesn't exude the same kind of power that Richard Rider does. But that doesn't make him any less powerful, and it doesn't make his costume any less impressive. Also, Disney, if you're listening, let me play Samuel Alexander, please. I want to wear his costume. Thank you. Number 9. Beast. We mentioned in the last video the way the X-Men uniforms were all essentially variations of the same costume. Hank McCoy was a shorter, stocky guy. He had huge hands and feet, and his original costume didn't even have gloves or boots, which helped him to stand out even more. Hank was the bruiser on the team for sure, with his mutations being strength and agility. But while he may have been a somewhat odd-looking guy, he was still fairly human-looking. That is, until Amazing Adventures number 11 in 1972. Hank got a job at Roxxon, basically, where he developed a serum that acted as a catalyst for activating latent mutations for short periods of time, and then he drank it. The effects of this serum ended up making Hank grow gray fur. His muscles expanded, his ears became large and pointed, he got claws, and his canine teeth grew and became fangs. The serum further increased his superhuman agility, endurance, speed, and strength, as well as enhancing his senses. In Amazing Adventures 14, his fur would become blue thanks to Quasimodo, and he's been the same ever since. Whoa, slow your roll there. I gotta talk about how great you are. Every time you like and subscribe, it sends a ripple through the YouTube algorithm that makes this channel look just a bit more attractive. So thanks for doing that. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook as well. And I'll carry on making this video. Number 8, Scarlet Witch. Now, I don't know if everyone's seen the WandaVision show, but it's definitely one you should check out if you are a Marvel fan. One of the best parts, at least for me, was seeing Wanda Maximoff get a new look. A look that pays homage to the origins of the character, but embraces a modern design, and just makes her look like a total badass. Which I think most of the fans out there have really been craving. Her powers in the MCU haven't always been all that they potentially could be, even though she outclasses almost every other hero in the MCU. But moving forward, I think we are definitely starting to see her break out of the shell, and this costume really embodies that. I am so excited to see her in the Multiverse of Madness. She is gonna be sick. Number 7, Deathstroke. We always gotta include at least one morally ambiguous character on these lists. But at least this time, it's when he was actually acting as a hero. When Deathstroke was the leader of a superhero team, Defiance, he wore an awesome black and white costume. But not only did this costume change up his color scheme, he actually got a cape. Edna Mode would not approve. His black and orange color scheme is definitely a classic, and I'm not necessarily saying this is better, but I mean it comes extremely close. It's better. And the story it belongs to is such a good one. Check it out. Number 6, Superman's black costume. Alright, here we go. Look, he may have a mullet, but Superman in a black costume? I mean, come on. After the Man of Steel was resurrected in Superman Volume 2, number 81, after his death at the hands of Doomsday, he came back with an all-black costume with silver symbol and wrist gauntlet type things. I don't know about you guys, and I know a lot of people hate that mullet, but you put any hero in black compared to their usual color scheme, and I'm here for it. The costume would get a revamp in the Justice League live-action movie when Henry Cavill comes back to life, and it looked even better there. It may not have lasted too long, but I think this costume has a definite place in my favorite alternate superhero costumes. Number 5, Monica Rambeau. When Monica Rambeau showed up in her costume in Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16, it was a statement. I liked it, honestly. It was simple and unique. I don't really like the underarm wing things, they were kind of weird, but ultimately it worked for the time. She has been around for a long time, being part of the Avengers, Next Wave, and the Ultimates. But it was in the Next Wave number 1 where I think she got the best addition to her costume. All it took was a coat, and she instantly became so much cooler. The color of her under costume changed a bit, which it consistently does, but the jacket has now become a staple, and every time she's wearing it, I am swooning. Number 4, Red Hood. When Jason Todd was killed by the Joker in Death of the Family, it was a huge thing. It was heartbreaking. It was brutal. It was visceral. 6 months after his death, though, he was resurrected, and he was restored by Talia al Ghul in the Lazarus Pits. He would join and be trained by the League of Assassins, eventually leaving to pursue justice, although a bit more brutally than before. Enter the Red Hood, and an absolutely awesome new costume. Inspired by the original Red Hood costume worn by Joker, Jason's Red Hood costume is so much better. It's menacing and tactical and badass. I think I have a thing for jackets because, again, I love the frickin' jacket. Number 3, Batgirl Cassandra Cain. Okay, look, we talked about Batgirl in the last point, but we were talking about Barbara. If we want to get really into Batgirl designs that will knock your socks off, we don't have to look any farther than Cassandra Cain. Cassandra is the 4th Batgirl, and she is the daughter of David Cain and Lady Shiva, 2 assassins who raised and trained Cassandra to become the perfect warrior. She became the new Batgirl in Batman No Man's Land, and let me just say, if I was walking the streets of Gotham and I saw someone dressed like this, I would just move, like to a different city. It's so fitting for her, it's intimidating, it's intense, and if I was a criminal, it would give me nightmares. Number 2, Blade. When Blade first appeared in Tomb of Dracula number 10, he had an Interesting costume choice. Blade sported a collared jacket with a bandolier armed with stakes, riding boots, and let's not forget the super sweet yellow glasses. More of like a cool pirate with yellow goggles than a vampire hunter. He would have different variations of the costume. One that was actually pretty good was when he wore green goggles, a purple jacket and matching boots, green trousers, and a yellow belt. But in Night Stalkers #1 in the 90s, he finally showed up in the leather, sporting a leather jacket, all black clothing with the katanas. Of course, this was born out of the 90s, but it stuck. It has evolved over the years, but the key things introduced have stayed. The leather. The leather stuck. Number 1. Storm. The X-Men Storm is one of the coolest looking characters in Marvel Comics, for me. And that fact only gets reinforced in the Marvel Dark Ages #4, when she shows up in a Wakandan-inspired gold and silver costume. It is absolutely stunning. Storm herself is an extremely fashion-heavy member of the X-Men. She changes up her look often, and it's usually in unique and awesome ways. Like, I really liked when she had the mohawk. But this Wakanda costume just takes the absolute cake for me. It calls back to her original costume from the second Genesis X-Men, but it's regal as hell, which it should be when she's the Queen of Wakanda. The designs are amazing, and if I saw her show up like this, I'd believe she was a goddess too.
At number 10, we've got Aquaman. Looking specifically at the redesigns that occurred between the Super Friends era and the 90s look. There's no arguing that the Super Friends look is pretty corny. Some would say that any redesign would have made it better, but what went into making Aquaman go from looking like this to looking like this was a decision that not only changed the way we saw Aquaman, but how we knew him as well. Firstly, the original look has him extremely clean looking, like he's been untouched by any battle, which we all know isn't true. And maybe that's just how superheroes were illustrated back then. But the 90s look has him with a harpoon for a hand, no shirt, and this sweet metal chest piece that just makes him look like he's really from the depths of the ocean. His trident also has a major redesign here that gives a more menacing look, like it's really designed to do real damage. And maybe it's not quite part of the costume, but the long hair and beard just seem like the right choice for Aquaman that should have been a thing from day one maybe. But maybe that's just me.
Number 9. The Hulk. Now, this isn't exactly a redesign, and I'll give you that. It's more like a mistake. It's a mistake that led to one of the most iconic characters for Marvel. When the Incredible Hulk first appeared in Marvel Comics, his skin was actually a gray color to keep him indistinguishable from any real-world race, as Stan Lee wanted. But an issue with the colorist's ink actually led to the character coming out looking green, which, I mean, you still get the desired effect. Stan actually ended up liking the green more, and they stuck with it. Good call, Stan the Man. We miss you. Narratively, they even gave a reason for this. At first saying it was prolonged gamma exposure, and later saying that Grey Hulk was an alternate personality version of the Hulk.
At number 8, we have Wolverine. Wolverine's costume has had many changes over the years, but the change from the original yellow look is a significant design choice in the right direction. The thing is, Wolverine looks pretty cool in the original X-Men uniform, but something about this darker look feels like it complements his personality more. The red eyes and the black-gray tones in this outfit are so cool and much more menacing than the classic yellow tiger stripe design, which reflects what X-Force stands for as well. X-Force is a mutant organization put together by Wolverine himself, which applies lethal force if the mission calls for it. It makes sense that Wolverine would be behind something like this because of his inherent Machiavellian outlook on life. This character has lived for so long and through so much that his jadedness has become a staple to who he is. And this redesign just strikes me as being a more accurate portrayal of who Logan is behind the costume.
Number 7. Drax the Destroyer. Thanks to the MCU, it's really hard to think of Drax the Destroyer in any other way. But the MCU's depiction actually borrows from the redesign of Drax from 2004. For this though, Drax here was, well, he had a cape. Capes are cool, no doubt, but I mean, he's just so much better now. Take a look at his design when he was first introduced in the 1970s. Bright green skin with a very comic booky purple costume. It was unique, I'll give you that, but as the rival to the Mad Titan Thanos, it's just nowhere near as imposing and intimidating as it should be. The 2004 design with the pale green skin, red tattoos, and knives evoke the kind of strength and power that comes from the title of the Destroyer.
At number 6, we have The Flash. Looking at the Jay Garrick Golden Age Flash, we can all agree that there was room for improvement. Need I mention the elephant in the room? The silly hat? Okay, I know it has sentimental value, having been his father's World War I helmet, but it just doesn't look very cool. I'm sorry. And he would use it as a weapon by throwing it at bad guys? Anyway, I'm just roasting him now. But when Barry Allen is introduced in 1956 with a new outfit, it seems like it was always meant to be that way. His helmet is replaced with a mask, and the little lightning bolts stick around, which we're happy to see. This costume then basically remains untouched until today, having undergone a few redesigns that didn't really stick, like Kid Flash, which, I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. And the John Fox look, which once again, I don't know if it's the right decision for the character. I think the best place the design has found itself is Wally West's costume, which just gives the character a sleek look with lots of integrity.
Number 5. Lobo. Okay, before you jump on me in the comments saying he's a villain, he's more of an anti-hero, okay? When Lobo first appeared in DC Comics, well, he looked like poo. You were more likely to laugh than to think he had any kind of strength going for him. He had an orange and light purple skin-tight suit, for Pete's sake. But when he reappeared with his biker motif, it just made sense. Ripped jeans, leather gloves and a vest. With all his craziness, foul language, weapons, and spiked hair, he needed the rest of him to match. And I think we can all agree his iconic hook was definitely a worthwhile addition. Let's just forget about his newest New 52 redesign though.
No.
At number 4, we have Iron Man. This is one of the biggest redesigns on the list, and for good reason. The old Iron Man is made to look like he's literally wearing a big suit of armor that Tony Stark would crudely bolt himself into. But over time, with the way that the character's abilities become more advanced, so does the costume. It gets sleeker, more form-fitting, and the colors are toned down a bit, making for a more realistic look, tonally. Something I noticed that's a real eyesore from the original look is the design of the face. The original eye holes and mouth make Iron Man look kind of soulless, like there isn't even a person in the costume. And sometimes that was actually the case, but as Tony Stark's storyline is refined, it seems as though his costume gets less and less blocky as well. And this wasn't only the case for Iron Man, it was arguably the case for every other hero in this list and beyond. With comic books getting more legitimized over time, the depth of all the characters expanded, allowing for cooler, less fantastical designs that you might actually be able to imagine seeing in the real world.
Number 3. Spider-Man. This is an arguable point. Spider-Man's red and blue classic suit is extremely iconic, and I don't think anyone thinks it's bad. The Sam Raimi version of that suit is beautiful, but if you tell me that you dislike the Black Venom symbiote or the black cloth version of this suit, 1, you're a liar, and 2, we can't be friends. This suit was actually designed by a guy called Randy Schuler for a contest Marvel had, and they paid him $220 for it. I'm not sure how that compares to today, inflation-wise, but that $220 bought the Spider-Man's greatest designs outside the original. So great, they even came up with excuses for him to wear it after getting rid of the symbiote version of it.
Okay, at number 2 we have the Batman costume designs from the movies. This is a big one that I think a lot of people agree with. Looking at his original look from the 1966 Batman TV show and the redesigns that took place to get to Christopher Nolan's designs for The Dark Knight, it's clear to anyone that these were major steps in the right direction. Although the original look was probably meant to be a bit goofy, it still could have looked a little less like pajamas and still gotten the feeling across. This is an important transformation to analyze because Batman's original outfit speaks to how seriously comic books were being taken back in the 60s, and that was not very seriously. Honestly, Adam West looks like he pulled a $10 Batman costume off the secondhand shelf at a Halloween store in November. I mean, it barely looks like the cowl fit him. And then when we were blessed with the Dark Knight trilogy back in 2005, we were reminded that these days, Batman is a serious character that deserves a serious look. His suit got darker, more slick, and it finally looked like real armor, which makes sense for the subject matter, which has, over the years, gotten much more gruesome and violent. This was an essential redesign that demonstrates not only how far Batman has come as a character, but how far comic books have come as well. And the massive success of the Nolan trilogy suggests that people were ready for that change.
Number 1. Carol Danvers. The original Carol Danvers Miss Marvel costume is so incredibly different from her redesign as Captain Marvel that you'd be forgiven for thinking they were different people at first. Her Miss Marvel costume was characterized by a black leotard with a big yellow lightning bolt, bare legs, and black boots and gloves. While being an iconic costume, knowing what we know of her backstory and looking at the tone and personality of her character, it didn't seem right for Carol Danvers. When she jumped on the scene with her red and blue pilot-esque Captain Marvel uniform with the shorter hair and the star emblem, she exudes the confidence and strength that her character demands. She even still kept the red sash belt thing, which was probably my favorite part of her costume. This is the suit that inspired her MCU costume with not a single trace or mention of her Miss Marvel suit. It is also the suit that almost everyone has gotten to know her by and has completely revamped and reimagined her character.
Number 10, Lady Deathstrike. I'm often torn when it comes to a character like Lady Deathstrike. When it comes to her initial appearance and costume as a villain, it was an iconic and terrifying look for the character. But over the years, I believe we've done right by her to update her look and make her look more refined, but also still terrifying. In fact, the fact that she doesn't always wear the horror of her appearance on her sleeve, broadcasting it for the whole world to see, almost makes her more frightening to me at times. Of course, even without that first iconic look, she still sometimes does like to dress up spooky scary, but I like that now her design usually gives us some more depth when it comes to what kind of villain and character Yuriko Oyama is. Honestly, I also really loved her design in the Messiah Complex. Terrifying, intimidating, but less cartoonish, I suppose, than her original design. Number 9, King Shark. King Shark is a shark, and has always been a shark, but hasn't always been a great white shark. He's actually had quite a few different looks over the years, although I cannot deny his recent redesign that we got in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and which kind of carried over somewhat to his own Suicide Squad spin-off comic series, is probably one of the best ones we've seen in a while. King Shark here is more a humanoid great white, a beast of a landfish who walks around on 2 feet, but is still tough enough to fall more than 20 stories and still get back up somehow. There is also a sweetness and innocence to this cannibalistic creature that we know as Nanaue that comes across both in his character redesign and costume redesign, with how casually he is often dressed. And friends, before we move on to this next point, be sure to go check us out on Facebook if you aren't already. We just relaunched everything over there. It looks super cool, so make sure if you're on Facebook you are following us. Do it now. I'll wait. Number 8, Poison Ivy. My feelings on Ivy are similar to my feelings on Harley when it comes to her costume design. Although I think when it comes to her overall redesign and growth as a character, I actually feel like her changes have been even more significant in comparison to Harley's, possibly just because she's been around, quite a bit longer. Poison Ivy made her first appearance in Batman issue 181 back in the 60s. The look she sported back then has always kind of reminded me of Peter Pan, a sexy lady version of Peter Pan, but Peter Pan nonetheless. I think it's the tights and the shoes, honestly, and the green, or I don't know, maybe the Jolly Green Giant mascot? Yeah, she also kind of has that look going on, minus the green skin. However, now Ivy generally is depicted with having green skin, but fortunately her outfit has evolved and changed with the times, so she's not like full-on Jolly Green Giant. From her going to what she wore originally, to wearing underwear and an open button-up shirt in the Arkham Batman games, to a full dark green bodysuit in modern comics, to something that pays a little more homage to her original plant-covered look with her Queen Ivy redesign. I gotta say, actually, that Queen Ivy redesign, initially I was like, I don't know about that. And it came around on me. I quite like it now. Number 7, Juggernaut. While Juggernaut still wears his Cyttorak armor, even he has seen some major improvements when it comes to his look over the years. And not just in the costume department either. We've also seen this character change a ton as a person, to the point that now he's a lot more anti-hero than villain even. Possibly even bordering on full-on hero, I'd say. Juggernaut no longer actually wears armor given to him by Cyttorak because he renounced the god, and instead used materials that Cyttorak had left from the times he basically reached out to Earth to forge his own armor. The result is a much more sleek looking design as opposed to the more clunky and stiff looking armor that he wore when he made his first appearance back in X-Men issue number 12. And that look is still iconic, don't get me wrong, and it's quite similar to the overall character design, but a few important tweaks over time have greatly improved Juggernaut's overall look today. Juggy baby is looking good. Like that new armor. Number 6, Captain Boomerang. Boomerang. Oh boy, what a long way this character has come. In fact, the main Boomerang that we've come to know in the comics isn't even the same person anymore. Is it still Owen Mercer now? Owen Mercer is the son of the original Boomerang, and even when Captain Boomerang was the OG, George Harkness, he had quite a different look. Captain Boomerang made his first appearance in issue 117 of the original Flash series, where he sported a boomerang patterned outfit, white scarf and white sash. Also his little hat. This look was something. Honestly, it reminds me of like a flight attendant. And I kind of would like to see it come back, even though it's quite a bit more flamboyant than what Harkness wore in later years, and definitely a lot less intimidating. Still, it's pretty fun. Obviously I'm saying it got better as time went on, but I still like this look. Harkness would later become more synonymous with a more street-inspired look, wearing a trench coat, and often covered in boomerangs, but not as a pattern, more as like armament instead. So that, you know, he could throw a boomerang and then throw another one. Boomerangs all over the place. Boomerang patterns and blue outfits with little hats. I need to do a cosplay of that original look. Number 5. Trapster. Trapster was once known by the unfortunate name of Paste Pot Pete. Well, he's still not an A-list villain. Trapster's look and name are at least a lot better than what he was originally working with. He was once a villain who simply was obsessed with a glue gun, sticking people in place and sometimes clumsily getting trapped in his own glue. Fortunately, from there the character was expanded upon and changed his name, sick of being ridiculed, making his whole thing more about creating traps than just, you know, trapping people in glue. I think overall a good decision from Trapster's point of view. Unfortunately, many heroes still tease him from time to time, as they still remember the days when he was known as Paste Pot Pete. Yeesh, they will not let him forget. Number 4. Despero. Despero used to have a weird gill side hawk and an orange jumpsuit, but now he's got like a gill mohawk and looks like a badass. For those of you unfamiliar, Despero is actually one of the oldest enemies of the Justice League of America. He made his first appearance in Justice League of America issue number 1 from 1960. In other words, he's pretty old school. Not only has his look completely changed, but his whole deal is pretty much changed as well. When we first met Despero, he was a villain who was all about mind control and playing lots of chess, not known for his physical prowess. Over time, the depiction of this Kalinorian alien villain changed and he became more known for his strength than his fondness of chess and his mind games. Although the modern character of the version from Earth Prime has both super strength and psionic powers. So too did his appearance change, with him trading in that jumpsuit for a cape and, you know, some prominent abs. Cause that's what makes you look scary, I guess. Gotta have the abs, gotta be real jacked. I do like though when he was like, I will play chess with you, ha ha ha, I'm a villain. We need more chess-based villains. Someone make that, please. Number 3. Magneto. Magneto was such a rectangle head back in the day. Don't tell him I said that though, please. I don't want him to come for me. But seriously, when it comes to Magneto's overall look, he's come a long way from just being a pair of piercing blue eyes peering out of a very boxy helmet. His look has always been iconic, that I definitely cannot deny. But over the years it's become a lot more refined and complex, along with the character. When Magneto first appeared on the scene, he was kind of more of a two-dimensional evil mutant, hell-bent on ruling over the humans and planet Earth, having mutants take their rightful place as the dominant species, Homo superior as they were known. Over time, his struggle became more nuanced as we learned more about his own backstory, which was quite tragic, and how he was mistreated, and it made a lot more sense that Magneto would want to fight for mutants who he felt had been marginalized, as he had been himself many times over through the course of his life. With this depth, his look also gained a lot of depth, and today, no matter which outfit he has on, he generally looks stylish, gentlemanly, and, well, all-powerful. As well he should. That upgrade? That's a 10. Number 2. Ultron. Ultron has come a long way since his first appearance, disguised as the Crimson Cowl in issue 54 of the Avengers, and then introduced fully as the menace known as Ultron 5 in issue 55. Even then, he'd already apparently come a long way from his first model, his first design, which was revealed in a flashback in issue 58 of the Avengers, where this crude yet workable robot calls inventor Hank Pym his daddy. That was quite a crude looking version of Ultron. Since then, Ultron has become more and more menacing in his appearance as time has gone on, with one of the most terrifying redesigns of the character appearing, for me at least, in the alternate reality from Marvel's What If Disney Plus series, where he actually succeeded in taking over Vision's form. The more humanoid Ultron looks to me, which is basically what also has happened over time with his design, with him even at one point fully merging with his father, Hank Pym, in the comics, the more terrifying I find his appearance to be. And what is really the point of a redesign for a villain if not to make them more menacing, horrifying, and intimidating to readers and the heroes they come up against? I mean, you're either going for more scary, I think, or more depth. Or ideally more depth and more scary. That's the best. Number 1, General Zod. General Zod has received a major upgrade when it comes to his look over the years. Oh my goodness. And this improvement has made him a lot more intimidating when it comes to his overall appearance in the comics. When General Zod first made his appearance in Action Comics in issue 283, we really only saw him in a flashback panel where it was revealed he was condemned to spend 40 years trapped in the Phantom Zone. Oh no! He appears as just a guy in a green uniform, not particularly muscular, wearing little booty shorts? Possibly no pants? It's hard for me to tell if his pants or tights are just the color of his skin or if they are non-existent, as I'm really only looking at, like scans of this. So he's either just running around in green short shorts and matching knee-high boots, or he's got tan pants on. I'm not sure which. But either way, he's got his underwears over his pants or just no pants. Now, General Zod is less associated with the colors of tan and green and is more affiliated with the colors of black and red, often donning armor in those colors and sporting menacing yet cleanly shaped facial hair, really evoking those kneel before Zod vibes in the present. I mean, I can't even believe it's Zod when you go back and look at that original appearance. Woo! Looks so silly. Number 10, Loki. Loki has shifted so much in comics. He's technically a different character from that original Loki that first appeared in Venus issue number 6 and again in Journey into Mystery issue number 85. Loki's look originally was pretty silly, especially if we're talking about trying to adapt that look to the big screen and make it look menacing. We do get a version of that sort of original costume in the Loki series when we see an older, bitter, and sadder Loki who actually more reflects that original costume and that original Loki. Loki now appears to look much cooler in the comics and is also much more versatile when it comes to their style. This has also translated to the big screen, where Tom Hiddleston's Loki has also gotten more and more dapper and stylish as time has gone on as well. At least that's how I see it. Number 9, Harley Quinn. I know people love the original costume, so this might be like kind of a hot take, but I personally think Harley has had so many amazing costumes and looks over the years that have just improved on what was already, well, good. I'm not saying the original costume was bad, to be clear. So yeah, I'm not saying the original costume that she had was at the level of some of the other ones on our list, Loki, being too much, or too ridiculous, but I am saying that I think her design has only really improved with time. It's a compliment, Harley. Take it. Of course, not all of her looks have been winners in comparison to that original look, but I do think that her current outfit has definitely been one of her best that we've seen so far. And then of course there is her whole Birds of Prey looks, which I loved, and her The Suicide Squad DCEU look, which seems to have been inspired by more modern Harley Quinn comics and video game designs. And to be clear, we're talking about James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, not Suicide Squad. Not David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Those are two very different looks, are they not? And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to hear about some more cool supervillain redesigns that we love, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, the Joker. The Joker is another character who has come a long way when it comes to his different looks. While his iconic face paint has remained, he's had many different outfits over the years, and many different iconic pieces that we would identify as being part of his costume. Purple and green remain the Joker's colors, but instead of wearing a suit with like a ribbon looking tie that kind of reminds me of something like a child would wear, like a kid in the olden days, or some kind of like floppy bolo tie, he is typically seen more in a trench coat that happens to be purple. Also, if anyone knows what that tie is called, it's like a little bow, but it's like a string. Let me know in the comments. I don't know what that's called. I do not know. The Joker looks less ridiculous and more menacing in modern comics, with the pranks of his earlier days also getting twisted along with his appearance. In more modern comic book tales, Joker has also been particularly terrifying, at one point having removed his face and stapled it back on in Death of the Family in 2011, and at another point sporting his own intimidating Joker-inspired batsuit during Joker War in 2020. Both of these are great looks, but very different looks. Number 7. Toad. Toad has also had a lot of different looks throughout the years, with his original one being the most ridiculous. And also fitting, but also so ridiculous. But I'd say the real cool thing about Toad is that a lot of the time his outfits actually really reflect how he's feeling inside and his evolution as a character. This is why at first it's really no surprise that Toad basically is dressed up as a court jester in his first appearances. At that time that was basically what he was, acting as Magneto's often disappointing goon who wanted nothing more than to please his master, but usually kind of failed at doing so. Toad? As time went on, Toad would come to realize that he didn't actually need to settle for Magneto's mistreatment of him, and that he was no longer really indebted to Magneto. In various depictions of the character, he'd become somewhat more independent, and sometimes a lot more Toad-like in terms of his design. Fox X-Men movies, I'm looking at you. And in terms of his roles, he also even went from being a villain at Magneto's side in the comics to kind of a weird ally of the X-Men when he became the school janitor in Wolverine and the X-Men. Remember when that happened? He also at one point got a flaming tongue. So he's changed a lot. I don't know if I'm as here for the weird green flaming tongue, but I definitely feel like his look is a lot better now than it was before. Also like that he's kinda like a hacker now. I think that's cool. Number 6. The Riddler. The Riddler originally looked Jim Carrey levels of Riddler ridiculous when he first appeared in Detective Comics issue 140. And that's not a slight to Jim Carrey, by the way. I still love that version of the Riddler. Just also a side note, when I call things ridiculous or weird, it's not necessarily an insult coming from me. And while I do have respect for the Riddler's original question mark suit, I don't think it's necessary for him to be covered in question marks so that we know he's the Riddler. He likes riddles. We get it. Riddler has had a ton of redesigns since that first appearance, with a good number of his modern takes being much improved on in comparison. Okay, so not all of the modern takes on the Riddler have been great. See Riddler with his hair shaved into a question mark shaped green mohawk. That was a weird time, but overall I think we can say we've seen a marked improvement. I also do love the recent redesign with Paul Dano playing the Riddler in the Batman film. I feel like this design for the character was definitely one of the most terrifying looks for him yet, and also fit really well with his origin and his backstory, and just with the overall tone of that film, which takes inspiration from the comics but very much grounds the character of the Riddler in reality, giving him more power as well in the process. I think. Like when you make it just not about like silly riddles and you make it about like what is the Riddler and why are there riddles and what is this really about, I mean, it's a powerful character. Number 5. Cheetah. I mean, the Cheetah outfit has changed a lot since her first appearance, and so has the character. The first Cheetah villain we were ever introduced to in the pages of 1943's Wonder Woman issue number 6 is no longer the Cheetah we have in comics. Literally. Much has changed about the character, including her identity, her origin, and her overall look and power set. The original Cheetah was Priscilla Rich, a jealous debutante who dressed up in a skin-tight cheetah onesie. It's a look, I gotta say. Now we have Barbara Minerva as the main Cheetah, who instead of dressing up actually has a humanoid cheetah form, having been transformed basically by a god. Very different looks and takes on this character, but I definitely say that Minerva's is better overall. Sorry Priscilla, it's just cooler. Like, I mean, then you get to actually kind of fight like a cheetah lady, as opposed to just a lady in a cheetah costume. Number 4. Crime Syndicate. The Crime Syndicate have always been cool, but over the years their looks have gotten a lot more detailed, badass, and in some cases, a lot hotter. I'm here for the sexy Crime Syndicate, I must say. I'm feeling it. The Crime Syndicate are actually one of the earliest villain teams to take on the Justice League, making their first appearance in 1964 in Justice League of America issue number 29. At least the earlier continuity version of that team, that is. Because this is DC we're talking about here, so you know, now we're on Prime Earth and that was before that, but anyways. Back then their outfits were less sleek and more blocky, such was the time. They were also a lot less sexy back then overall as a team, and had a lot less independent flair, with their looks being just a little bit more rough and Basically, similar adaptations of the team members that they were mirroring. I mean, Owlman literally has Batman's look from like the neck down almost exactly, with only the Stark owl on his head setting him apart. It's a look. Number 3, Kang the Conqueror. Okay, so Kang still looks pretty crazy, even in the comics, but he's come a long way from that wild purple and green eyesore when it comes to his cinematic appearance at least. We saw our first, likely of many, Kangs in the Disney Plus streaming series Loki. Here Kang was played by the amazing Jonathan Majors, and instead of sporting his very blue face and purple helmet, he was dressed simply in a nice purple robe with green tunic, pants, and sandals underneath. A nice nod to the original design while still providing its own unique take on his look, and a take that is quite a bit more sensible and stylish. Still, an air of flamboyance in how he's dressed, but not so over the top that it undermines how intense, inevitable, and intimidating He Who Remains, aka an alternate Kang, appears to be here. Number 2, Lex Luthor. Lex looks a lot cooler and a lot more dapper in modern comics than his original appearance. Remember when he used to wear a purple suit with green pants? What is it with villains in purple and green? Especially over at DC. What's going on over there? It's kind of a very shocking combo of colors, especially for someone like Lex. Although I will admit, put it into a mech type suit, gloss it up a bit, and it works a little better for me. I do like it. Lex used to wear this purple suit with straps crossed over it, and a very Dracula-esque high collar with bright green pants and purple boots. Fortunately, he now more keeps to suit and tie looks, looking a lot more polished and refined, and occasionally mixes in some badass mechanical armor, which makes him look a lot more intimidating than that collar ever did. Number 1, Killmonger. Talk about villains who have seen an upgrade. In Jungle Action issue number 6, we got our first look at Killmonger. I don't even think you'd recognize him today if your main experience with this character came from the Marvel Cinematic Universe film Black Panther and Michael B. Jordan's portrayal of him. The original look for Killmonger involved a lot of spikes, as opposed to a lot of horrifying scars. He didn't initially mark himself for his kills, instead, he was just really pointy. He also wore white pants and a red sash, with no shirt initially. We've come a long way since then, with Killmonger having even been to space and back, where he ruled over the Wakandan Space Empire. And thankfully his look has changed quite a lot since then. I'm partial to his symbiote look personally, still a little spiky, but you know, it doesn't overdo it. Nothing wrong with a little bit of spikes, you just don't want to have too many.
Number 10, Iron Man, but with a nose. In order to ease ourselves into the parade of awful, let's start out simple. The story of this redesign is pretty great. Apparently, Stan Lee was looking over artwork for an issue of Iron Man that had been drawn by a relatively new artist. When the artist drew Iron Man in profile, he had drawn Tony's eyes too close to the surface of the mask, which would mean that there was no room for his nose in the helmet. Stan pointed this out, saying something along the lines of, "Hey true believers, where's this cat's nose?" The editors misunderstood Stan's point and decided to start drawing Iron Man's mask with a nose on it. The in-story reason for this change was that Iron Man wanted his mask to be more expressive so that his enemies would be filled with terror, so he added a nose. Now, I don't know about you, but if a flying robot death machine being piloted by a drunken billionaire crashed through my wall, I would be terrified regardless of whether or not it had a nose. This change lasted a few issues before Stan Lee saw it and said something along the lines of, "Why does Iron Man have a nose? That looks stupid. Nuff said." So after that, Iron Man lost the weird Michael Jackson nose and went back to his regular look. Number 9, Casual Friday Superman. Another one that's not that bad is Superman's original New 52 look. After the DC universe was rebooted, Action Comics showed us some adventures from the early days of this version of the character. As a Superman who is still figuring out what kind of hero he is, this look makes a lot of sense. Instead of the tights and trunks, he wears blue jeans and a t-shirt with the Superman logo. I don't hate this look, but I do think the short red cape looks a bit out of place with such a casual look for the Man of Steel. It's a bit underwhelming for a character like Superman, but that is intentional as it helps build anticipation for the moment when he does eventually get his full New 52 costume, which is actually one of the character's better looks. Towards the end of the New 52 era, Superman returned to his more casual look after he had been weakened by using his new solar flare power, giving the whole thing a nice sense of symmetry. Overall, I like this look for the story purpose it serves, but from a pure aesthetic point of view, it's probably one of Superman's worst. Number 8. Booster Gold's armored suit. A lot of the entries on this list are going to be from that period in the 90s when almost every character who was known for wearing spandex was suddenly given bulky metal armor. So let's start things out with what they did to Booster Gold. Booster Gold's original look features various bits of tech that he stole from a museum that he worked at in the 25th century. This includes a force field belt that is able to repel contact from all known forces short of a nuclear blast. This is why he's able to get away with wearing a light spandex costume, or at least he was. When his usual supersuit was destroyed in the 90s, Booster was forced to wear this rather bulky and heavily armored version of his suit. As someone who really likes Booster's usual look, this is a rough one to look at. And from a technical standpoint, why would someone wear armor yet leave the top of their head completely exposed? Isn't that one of the most vulnerable parts of the human body? Number 7. The Wasp's crossing redesign. Janet Van Dyne has had a few looks over the years, from her classic red and black outfit to her more modern black and yellow suit, but this founding Avenger has one look that is not remembered very fondly, and that is the look she was given in The Crossing. In this story, Tony Stark was revealed to be evil and working for Kang the Conqueror. He came into conflict with the Avengers and in the ensuing battle hit Wasp with a repulsor ray. Hank Pym tried to save her by exposing her to the chemicals that had given her powers, but this resulted in her forming a cocoon. When she came out of the cocoon, she had grown wings and antennas, and her head and hair had taken on a truly bizarre shape. Not to mention the scary long fingers she had developed. This new look came with stronger powers, but thankfully she was reverted back to her human form 10 months later in the Heroes Reborn continuity shakeup. Number 6. Black Canary's 80s look. Black Canary is a difficult character to redesign. On the one hand, her original costume is iconic. On the other hand, it is a somewhat dated and sexualized look with all the leather, corsets, and fishnets. Over the years, the look has gone through a lot of variation, trying to keep the general essence of the character intact while still making the outfit practical for a superhero. Out of the character's many looks, however, most would probably agree that this 80s redesign is the furthest from the mark. The boots are a lot to take in, but the billowy top with the long puffed sleeves is pretty rough. The worst part of this look, however, is the bird emblem that's wings extend beyond her shoulders. This look is not remembered fondly, and when the character went back to her more classic look, they made a point of showing her burning this costume on the cover of Action Comics number 609. Number 5. Armored Captain America. In the 90s, we were treated to an arc in the comics where, after so many years of being a hero, the super soldier serum in Captain America's body was beginning to wear off and was causing him to lose control of his body. This culminated in him having a massive heart attack and becoming paralyzed and unable to move his body at all. Tony Stark came to his friend's aid and constructed this metal exosuit which not only allowed him to move, but also let him fly and shoot repulsor beams and anti-missile armaments. This armor allowed him to keep fighting but did not heal Cap's heart, which resulted in him needing to get a blood and bone transplant from Red Skull. Although this is a very purpose-built suit, it is a bit too bulky for the already large Captain America, and is just another example of the 90s trend of everyone getting elaborate armor suits. What pushes it over the edge is an admittedly minor detail: the one eye hole. I don't know why, but it really bugs me, and if there was something in between the two eyes like his usual mask, I probably wouldn't have ranked it so high. I know, it's dumb, but it just bugs me so much for some reason that I can't really explain. It's a good thing articulating my opinions online isn't my job, or I'd be in real trouble. Number 4. Biker Wonder Woman. When Wonder Woman's mother learned of a prophecy that told her Wonder Woman would soon die, she tried to trick fate by making someone else Wonder Woman. She held a new contest for the title, made sure that Diana lost and that another Amazon named Artemis won. She hoped that this would result in Artemis being the one to die and Diana being able to live on. Although she was no longer Wonder Woman, Diana still operated as a hero, creating a new costume for herself. She was given leather shorts and a leather bra with only the bracelets and the W on the belt line letting you know who she was. Although to be fair, they did sometimes let her wear a jacket. This is a trend that honestly really bugs me with female redesigns, where they are given new costumes that are really over-sexualized to a point that it isn't justified by the story. Yes, it makes sense that she would get a new costume after losing the Wonder Woman mantle, but the fact that it looks like that makes whatever story reasons they give meaningless, as in the end it was just about drawing her in a skimpy costume. Same goes for Sue Storm's 90s boob window costume that I talked about in part 1, by the way. In order to get my point across, let me give you an example. Remember when Spider-Man got the black suit and it started affecting his behavior? That was a great redesign, and the story that told it justified the change. Now imagine the same arc, but instead of the black suit, Peter is wearing a leather thong. It would make the story worse and would make me think that it was never about telling a good story. It was about drawing Spider-Man in a thong. Rant over, moving on. Number 3. Jim Gordon's robot batsuit. When Bruce Wayne lost his memories of his cape and cowl days, longtime ally Jim Gordon was forced to take up the mantle for a bit. As he was unable to physically do all the things that Batman could, he was given a powerful robot mech suit in order to help him fight crime. It was several feet tall and featured a cloaking device, rocket boots, and a tear gas cannon, as well as quite a few other tricks. This is actually a pretty fun arc in the comics, but Jim actually sums up the problems with the suit pretty well when he first sees it, saying, "I look at that thing, but I just don't see Batman. It's like a bunny. Like a robot bat bunny." And he's right. The ears make it look like a rabbit, and it kind of throws the whole look off. However, the sleek black and yellow bat suit that Jim wears inside the suit is cool as hell. Number 2, Catwoman's armored suit. The last of the armored suits on this list is the suit that Catwoman wore for one issue in Catwoman Volume 2, Issue 50. When the villainous Cybercat decided to make it her mission in life to kill Selina Kyle, Catwoman was outmatched by the powerful Mech Cat. She went to her tech specialist, Clutterbuck, and asked him to design a new suit for her that would let her go toe-to-toe with her foe. The resulting armor suit had a retractable cable whip, giant sharp claws, night vision, and wrist-mounted missiles. As Catwoman puts it, it's not exactly her. As a character known for being sleek and prowling about, this suit is just not suited for the character. Catwoman hated the suit, only using it to defeat Cybercat and then immediately having Clutterbuck destroy it in a compactor. Number 1, Flashpoint Zatanna. When Barry Allen went back in time to try and save his mother's life and accidentally created the Flashpoint timeline, we were treated to a lot of great alternate versions of characters. Their version of Zatanna is not one of them. Look, I already made my feelings about overly sexualized redesigns clear in the Wonder Woman entry, so I'm not gonna beat a dead horse despite the fact that this outfit clearly falls into that category. Instead, I'm gonna talk about when redesigns miss the point of a character. Zatanna is a magic wielder and a stage magician. Therefore, all her good designs lean into this, so that even if you know nothing about the character, you can take one look at her and guess her deal. Oh, that lady dressed as a magician probably does magic. Now, looking at the Flashpoint version of the character, her look tells you nothing about her character other than she wears a lot of leather. The fact that it does nothing to indicate what the character is about is why I think it's one of the worst superhero redesigns. Number 10, Nightfall Batman. When Batman had his back broken by Bane in the infamous Nightfall story arc, he was replaced by the vigilante Azrael, who took it upon himself to redesign the Batsuit. Now, Batman's look has remained relatively consistent over the years, usually consisting of a gray bodysuit with a blue or black cape and mask. The only real variance over the years has been the black undies, the bat emblem, and the length of his ears. So any changes Azrael was going to make were going to really stand out. The redesign featured intense shoulder pads, a more armored look, as well as claws and an overabundance of pouches. My personal favorite part of this mess is the strange fins coming out of his legs. The entire point of the Nightfall arc was to explore a classic hero like Batman's place in a 90s setting, where readers were gravitating more towards extreme anti-heroes like the Punisher. So the over-the-top nature of this costume is very much intentional, which is why it's ranked at the bottom of this list. Number 9, Daredevil's armored suit. Daredevil is a character who has managed to have a lot of good redesigns throughout the years. His original yellow and red suit was fine, but was improved upon when he was given his iconic red suit. Even his prototype suit featured in Frank Miller's Man Without Fear run is somehow iconic despite its simplicity. But when looking at his various looks from over the years, the worst in my opinion is his armored suit. It's not horrible by any stretch, but between the red on black chest pieces and the various metal plates that make his shoulders look like the vents of an air conditioner, the whole thing just feels a bit busy. This redesign was done in order to make it more convincing that Daredevil could take on stronger supervillains, but having read stories where he's taken on villains in both this outfit and the red suit, it doesn't really make much of a difference, so may as well stick with the classic suit. Number 8, 90s Thor. Okay, so the 90s were a rough time to be a superhero apparently. The industry was pushing the stories in really weird directions, and in an effort to appeal to a modern audience in time for the approaching new millennium, it seemed like every classic hero was getting a weird new redesign. Of the 90s redesigns, very few of them stuck around, and that's a good thing, especially for Thor. Despite his original look being pretty clean and adaptable to a modern style, this somehow managed to take everything that worked about the original design and make it awful. In a move that is usually only reserved for female superheroes, the decision was made for Thor's midriff to be exposed, and for him to be given a giant leather codpiece piece. At least I think it's leather. It's the same color as his boots and shoulder pads, so that's probably right. I can understand how 90s Marvel would think that getting rid of the wing helmet would be the right call, but the weird faceless mask with the long flowing locks is a bit much. It's a bad look, but it does kinda draw attention to how ridiculous many female superhero designs are by applying the same aesthetic to a male figure. Number 7. Raven's New 52 look. Raven's original look is brilliant in its simplicity. One piece with a cool belt and a long flowing cloak with a large hood that covers her eyes. It's great. They eventually changed it to give her pants. Totally understandable. Not complaining. I like wearing pants too. But when the character was redesigned for the New 52, the look was altered for a new generation of fans, which is code for made worse. This overdesign decided to really lean into the bird theme, with her cloak being given a more feathered look. Kind of an odd choice, but I can get on board with a more detailed cape. What I can't wrap my head around is the weird feather mask covering her face. Not only is it ugly and distracting, but it also has no eye holes. Now, obviously she can see, but the lack of any eyes makes it really hard for the character to emote. The eyes are the window to the soul. Think of how expressive a character like Spider-Man is with his eyes, even if they are technically covered. This design gives us nothing to latch onto and makes Raven look like some boring woman with a grocery bag on her head. Number 6. Lobo's New 52 makeover. Another odd choice made by the folks at DC during the New 52 reboot is what they did to poor Lobo. Lobo is a character that is beloved for his excess. He was designed to be a parody of the 90s grimdark trend in comics, but readers didn't catch the joke and he was beloved by fans and received his own book. In a move that no one saw coming, the New 52 introduced a leaner, more refined version of the character, which seemed to fly in the face of his previous iteration. To add insult to injury, it was revealed that this was the real Lobo, and that the Lobo everyone actually enjoyed was an imposter. Kinda like that Simpsons episode, Principal and the Pauper. If DC was going to go to the trouble of introducing a new version of the character who looks nothing like Lobo and doesn't act like Lobo, why not just make a new character? Was this decision made with the intent of making the least amount of people possible happy? Number 5. Captain America's nomad look. In the fallout of the Watergate scandal, Captain America became disillusioned with the United States and decided that he could no longer be the Star-Spangled Man. He decided to become a man of no country and instead help save the world as Nomad. He replaced his Captain America costume with a costume that somehow manages to be equal parts way too much and not enough. He wears a simple black spandex bodysuit with yellow gloves, belt, and boots, and a black and yellow cape. Pretty basic, pretty boring. The only thing memorable about this outfit is the extremely deep cut V that goes all the way down to his navel. Granted, compared to his usual outfit, nothing was going to look as interesting, but this feels like a generic dollar store hero, not something befitting of one of the founding Avengers. I guess it makes sense as an outfit when you consider that he was wearing it as a form of protest. Number 4. Wonder Woman's karate makeover. In the late 1960s, the men at DC Comics decided that it was time to give their most iconic female superhero a feminist redesign. Unfortunately, rather than asking any women what they thought, they decided the best way to accomplish this was to take Wonder Woman's powers away. The thought process was that Wonder Woman was beholden to a male god, Zeus, so to make her more independent, she should learn karate to fight her enemies. They would be showing that she was a strong woman who could use hard work and determination to be a hero rather than relying on powers given to her by a man. What they failed to realize is that Wonder Woman was already a feminist icon, and female readers liked having a powerful character they could look up to. You'll also notice they didn't feel the need to take away Superman's powers in order to prove that he was a capable hero. Instead of her classic red and gold armor with her signature tiara and lasso of truth, she was given a generic white outfit. There's really nothing to say about it other than that. It's boring and a step backwards for her both fashion-wise and as a character. Thankfully, this caught the attention of a real-life feminist icon, Gloria Steinem, who had grown up on the comics. She decried the removal of a strong female role model and began a successful campaign to return Wonder Woman to her full power. When later asked about the changes he made to the character, Denny O'Neil was quoted as saying, "Oh boy, did I screw that up. I thought I was on the side of feminism. Sorry." Number 3. Electric Superman. Being the first superhero who has looked mostly the same since his creation in 1938, Superman is a difficult character to redesign. Whatever look you give him, it needs to be distinctly Superman. Some of his most popular redesigns include the black suit, the 2011 New 52 reboot, which got rid of his red trunks and gave him a high collar, and my personal favorite, the Rebirth outfit, which is just the classic suit with a red and gold belt. A allowing the character to keep his classic color scheme while still modernizing the look a bit. Despite this, it is never long before Superman ends up in his classic suit, red underwear included. Perhaps his most infamous redesign came in 1998 when the creatives at DC Comics decided to challenge the Man of Steel by giving him new powers. The logic being that having completely new abilities would be like forcing the character to learn to walk again. Superman was given electric energy based powers and as a result was given a new look consisting of a blue and white bodysuit with an electrical theme and blue skin. To add to the weirdness, he was split into two beings, with a second Superman having essentially the same suit with a red color palette, playing off the classic Elseworlds story Superman Red and Superman Blue from Superman Volume 1, number 162. It's not a horrible outfit, but it's just too drastic a departure for Superman, with nothing but the S-shield to ground the character in his long history. Number 2, Sue Storm's 90s outfit. Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four, have had a lot of redesigns over the years, but tend to stick relatively close to their original blue bodysuits. Compared to a lot of superheroines, Sue has usually been able to walk the line with the way she is drawn by artists, so that she is obviously attractive but not usually overly sexualized. Unfortunately, her 90s look doesn't really manage to thread this needle and ends up being more revealing than any story reasons could ever really justify. While most female costumes in comic books are redesigned to be more practical over time, this redesign took away Sue's pants, giving her white stockings and blue garters. Her midriff was completely exposed, and perhaps most notably, the 4 emblem on her chest is cut out to create a number-shaped boob window. This outfit feels like something out of an adult film parody of the Fantastic Four, and is so over-sexualized that it ends up just looking ridiculous, not to mention the bizarre tan lines Sue would end up with. Number 1, Hawkeye's skirt. Usually when a superhero gets a massive redesign, it is to either modernize their look or give them a more dignified look. A great example of this is Robin. For years he had the pantsless pixie boot look, but when Tim Drake took over the mantle, he was given an updated costume that kept the basic look and color scheme, but gave him a more dignified look. Pants. It gave him pants. I like to think of Hawkeye as the anti-Robin, as for a while his costumes got lamer and lamer every few years. His original look was fine, a blue and purple tunic with a purple mask and a bit of a Batman thing going on. To tie the look together, he had a big H on his head, because, you know, Hawkeye starts with an H. This look changed drastically when he took on the superhero identity of Goliath. He basically started wearing a pro wrestling outfit with a weightlifting belt and a weird shoulder strap with a strip of fabric whose only purpose seemed to be to cover his nipples. This is a bad redesign, but his next outfit is even worse, consisting of nothing but an open vest, a headband, and a very short skirt. After a while, they gave up on giving Hawkeye a cool costume, and now he basically just wears a t-shirt with a purple arrow on the chest. Maybe that's for the best.